Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Grim Dawn. Apologies for being out. Last week I did have some life stuff come up, but we're back. And we're going to be going through the next venture of the Spellbinder. Seeing where the build's at, what skills we got. Obviously that hotbar is full. That's not even counting the passive stuff that we've got going on either. But we've got the gear to talk about today. We've got some new devotions to go over because we did pick up a bunch of points there. And we can look at those skills a little bit more intensely too. So, all that being said, this is a YouTube video. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe your heart out. And we will get into it. But as of right now, level 50, so we picked up our glyph. We've got our leaping glyph. What is it? Stormclap. That is the glyph that we're going with because this one does the most cold damage. Well, it may not do the most cold damage, but it was the one of the two that I wanted more because these leaps let you get over some vertical terrain, and they do let you go in any direction that you damn well please while doing a bit of damage. So unlike the Pyromancer, this one is going to hurt people that we land on. There you go. You can see it works in an AoE, and it's feeding off of all of our damage stats anyway. The build itself is still going to obviously be focused around Drain Essence. That has not changed, but we have picked up the big points into Reap Spirit as well. The summon isn't the most important thing about the ability. The actual cast of it is going to be doing a lot of the damage that I need it to do. So the monster does pull some aggro from other enemies, which is really cool. But ultimately, since we're still in normal, the damage aspect of it is the most important. Now the Reap Spirit, since it does draw the aggro from the enemies a bit, it is helpful in letting me stand still for quite a while. It's not necessary that we stand still and lose a bunch of aggro, but once the game gets a little bit more difficult, once the enemies start doing more damage, we are going to want to have them pulled away from us as often as possible. So that's always going to be in the background. So in terms of the Reap Spirit itself, the pet bonuses that we're getting aren't huge. We don't have a whole lot of attention into those, but the ability itself is dealing quite a huge chunk of Aether damage, as well as some Vitality decay damage, and it's doing 250% of our main hand weapon damage, so it's pretty nuts. And it is a nuke button for us, essentially. So if we want to drop a whole bunch of damage on someone that isn't dying immediately to our Drain Essence, like a boss or any number of other things we've got going on, we can get a lot of help from the Reap Spirit to do so. We've also got Siphon Souls. We've got the Calidor's Tempest hanging around as well for some added AoE. Those two skills do exist. I don't have a whole lot of points into either of them because they're really just kind of get away from me abilities. Nothing too huge, and since we're in normal, we don't have a whole lot that can contend with all the damage of our Drain Essence. Now you may have also noticed that the Drain Essence is firing off some Tsunami devotion skills as well. Turns out the AoE that I was using to proc this ability wasn't doing it as often as a completely infinitely channelable beam. So being able to launch those cold damage waves while we are using our most damaging ability to begin with is super strong, and is exactly what I want it to be. Coming up though, I do have another devotion in the Revenant is the name of the devotion. So I might be swapping the Drain Essence from Tsunami to that in order to raise a bunch of skeletons as often as possible, and then we'll probably switch it back to something like Siphon Souls to get as much use out of it as we can. If you can't use Drain Essence or a beam of some sort to proc Tsunami, AoE abilities that hit lots of people are going to be just as good, especially AoEs that deal damage over a period of time, because they're going to proc it much more often with its little baby cooldown. Now we'll take a look at devotions since I've got an extra point to put in here, and I can use the final point for Raise the Dead. We're actually going to switch that over to Drain Essence. I'm going to see just how long it takes to make that work. But what I've currently got going on, we're using red and blue, because I'd really like to get over here to Aeon's Hourglass. This one, 20% chance on attack to reduce all active skill cooldowns. So it takes 6 seconds off of all of our cooldowns. I know you're thinking, if you have a channel ability that goes off all the time, why would you need to reduce your skill cooldowns? Well, that's because I have Mark of Torment and Mirror of Arioctes, which are both extremely long cooldowns, so having any amount of time taken off of those bad boys is going to be incredibly helpful. And once we start getting to the point of the game where we're actually killable and we need to have those invincibility tools up very often, that is going to come in clutch. Now, that being said, we started with Tsunami. Tsunami is a really, really just strong devotion power, so there's no reason not to take it, especially if you're building blue and you're building cold damage, because that is the way to go for this build. The next one is going to be Gallows. Gallows are mostly vitality damage stuff, and there are some other stats in here that are important too, but the 3% health and the 10% bleeding resistance, as well as the 10% vitality resistance, you actually get 6% max health from Gallows, so that's mega important for being tanky. It's giving you flat vitality damage as well, so it's going to buff the vitality damage, give you some flat to stack on all your other stuff as well. Really, really good for any vitality build, period. Then we have got Vulture, giving us 5 points into our red tree. We're getting Cunning Spirit, offensive ability, all good stuff there. We're getting bleeding resistance, which is always a good thing to have because a lot of the gear that we have currently does not give us that. We've got vitality and chaos resistance, and health and energy, super important too. So since we've got a melee build, we're going to be kind of standing on top of stuff a lot. Always good to have tanky stats. All that being said, though, Vulture, just kind of good in general, not really anything specifically wonderful about it. Wendigo, we are using the Wendigo's mark on our Reap Spirit, which is going to give it a bunch of vitality damage and attack damage converted to health. So I haven't done a whole lot of paying attention to the Reap Spirit when it goes out and how this procs on it, but really, the constellation itself giving us the vitality damage, the health, the spirit. Physical resistance, super important for much, much, much later on in the game because physical resistance is so hard to come by. But the casting and attack speed aren't super important. It's going to give us some percent to health, some flat vitality decay damage, and then it's just all around kind of what we're into. It's another one of those vitality constellations that is really, really good for vitality builds. And then the most recent one that we've got here, Revenant, is going to give us the ability to raise skeletons that deal vitality and aether damage with their attacks. They live for 6 seconds, but we can summon 3 of them, and they only have a 1.2 skill recharge. So the amount of draining that we're doing, we should have tons of skeletons basically all the time, attacking all sorts of people. The dead scale with player damage bonuses too. So they are going to use our vitality damage and aether damage stats to do their damage. Oh, they slow and reduce resistances too. That is wicked cool. And that's only going to get better as we level it up. So, but the Revenant itself, the constellations, it's going to give us a 10% chance of energy leech. We're going to get some energy from enemy spells. And energy is, again, super important for this build, so getting any amount of energy back, really, really good. We're getting a flat health increase from the Revenant, 10% damage from less from undead enemies, 15% resistance to pets, so that's great. Vitality resistance, my bad, as well as giving us 24% vitality resistance. Naughty. It's going to give us 6% attack damage converted to health, along with a 175 health as well. and another 5% of attack damage converted to health for pets. So, nuts as butts. Both the Revenant and the Wendigo are going to be doing lots of good stuff for our Reap Spirit. Now, in terms of the other abilities that we haven't talked about, or we've only talked about in passing, the Mark of Torment and the Mirror of Arcanist, both really good abilities. Mark of Torment is on a 16-second cooldown. Arcanist is on a 31-second cooldown. So if we are getting the Hourglass to work the way that we need it to, Mark of Torment is going to lose basically 30% off of its, almost 30% off of its cooldown. Oof. And Arcanist is going to be losing about 20% off of that cooldown. So 2 fairly long cooldowns that we have to worry less about because our Hourglass will be making them much better. Now, I do have a couple item-based abilities on this build too. They are not going to be sticking around. One of them is from the Apothecary set, which is getting phased out rather soon. I just got to hit level 58 or find better stuff for the moment. But that's the E button here, Apothecary's Touch, giving us 8% plus 342 of our health and some big health regen. And then we've also got a component giving us Sacred Strike, which is mostly just being used for the 20 reduced targets resistances for 5 seconds. So that being said, let's talk about some gear. Now, as far as items that I do really want to have on this build, we've got our first monster infrequent in the main hand slot. This is going to be dealing vitality and aether damage. It is the Ascendant Source. So this one in particular is giving it a meter target area, +1 meter target area to drain essence, and it's giving it a chance to affect up to 2 targets as well. On top of that, you're also getting 20% crit damage to drain essence, so it is real good for all that stuff. The other monster infrequent is our offhand. That's the Leaf Mane trophy. This is one that you'll pick up in Oogdenbog. Sad to say, you will have to spend some time there looking for this one. Probably not a whole lot of time because the Leaf Manes do, I mean, they run amok. But this is giving more flat vitality damage to drain essence, 5% of that attack damage converted to health as well. So really strong stuff there. It's giving mostly aether damage, which isn't my favorite, but it's giving us some points into Kalidor's Tempest too. So anything that we can get into our backup boys is good because I don't want to put any real points into them. It's giving 2 points into drain essence as well. So as many points as we get into that ability as we max it out completely, really good. And it's giving us cooldown reduction, 17% exactly. This is just a really good offhand. Yeah, really good offhand. The main hand is good too. It is not as good, so you know, take from that what you will. The hat we've got on right now, the Wreath of Souls, the whole reason that I'm using this over other hats is because it's giving +1 to everything in Necromancer, which is our main tree for this class. Really important stuff there. As well as 21% elemental resistance and energy regen. So it's just all in all, good hat. Love it. Keeping with the themes. Death Ward is our amulet. It's giving us vitality damage and another +1 to everything in Necromancer. Also has the Defy Death skill, which is really strong later on when you can potentially die. And if you're playing on a hardcore character, this will be really exciting as well, because this will keep you alive when you drop very close to death. It's going to save your cookies from burning. Wraithcaller's Mantle is giving a bonus 9% crit damage to our Reap Spirit as well as offensive ability, and it's giving 2 points to Reap Spirit as well. So the vitality resistance on there, pretty dope. But ultimately, this whole shoulder piece is purely for buffing our Reap Spirit, and it does a very good job at that while giving +2 points into the ability itself. And then lastly, there is the Ilgor's Eternal Vigil. That's our metal. That is going to give our Drain Essence another 15% chance to affect up to 2 targets, as well as adding another 6% crit damage. So this thing is further boosting the damage capacity of our Drain Essence, just like our main hand and our offhand, as well as giving us some energy regen and a flat 8% energy. So that is pretty wicked cool too. I do want to hit level 54 before the end of this video, so that is what we're going to do. And I do need to hit level 80 for the next 80 or 70. Maybe we'll do 70. I think that's more accessible. And then we can use that for some elite difficulty. We'll do the next one at 70 instead of 80, as was the original plan. And then for all the ultimate stuff, we'll go up to level 100. So those videos will come out in that order. I have had an idea for some videos in the past, like just doing an entire build based around one item. And sometimes there are a couple blue items out there that like look really cool, that have interesting effects. And it's like, oh, maybe I'll do that. But that is going to require a lot more in-depth theory crafting and actual crafting than kind of shooting the shit with regular class stuff. But yeah, let me know if you think the item builds sound fun. I'm sure I could figure something out with that. Not sure how effective they will all be in terms of, you know, late game, end game gameplay, but that's always fun to find something new to do, right? Just to recap everything that we've gone over so far today. Gear, number 1, you want the Ascendant Source, you want the Leaf Mane Trophy, Wreath of Souls, Death Ward, Wraith Stalker Band, Wraith Caller's Mantle, and then Ilgor's Eternal Vigil. Those are all items that are really, really strong with this build as it is right now at level 50-ish. And then up to 58, once we hit 58, we'll spike into something new. But we'll go over that in the next video when all the gear changes. The skills, as it were, right now, tons of point into Drain Essence, Hungering Reach, and Decomposition. All things required to make this do all the damage. As well as using Grave Chill to turn that damage into cold. Turn that Aether damage into cold. Now we've got Siphon Souls, Reap Spirit, Mark of Torment. We are using Spectral Binding and Spectral Wrath, but maybe not as much as other stuff. So passives are good, just not as important. And then we've got Iskandra's Elemental Exchange, Overload, Mirror of Arioctes, Kalidor's Tempest with the Wrath of Agrivix modifier, as well as Arcane Will, Mental Alacrity, and Inner Focus, and that is all on the Arcanist side of things. So that is going to do it for the skills. And now our devotions. You can see we've got Tsunami, Gallows, Vulture, Wendigo, and Revenant, making our way up to Eon's Hourglass for that tasty rewind that it gives us. But that is it, everybody. I'll see you next time. Peace out.